Hello, everyone, and welcome to Blogging Theology Academy. I'm Paul Williams, and I'm very honoured to be joined with Sheikh Hasan Spiker, who's in Jordan. Assalamu alaikum to you, sir.
Walaikum salam, Paul. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, very well. I'm in London. You're in Jordan, and we're both enjoying beautiful weather at the moment. Somewhat bizarrely for England, anyway. Uh,
Oh, how lovely.
yes,
Yeah.
it is actually. The sun is at that yellow object, which we often don't recognise because it's so rare in this country, but it's called the sun, apparently. Um, so today is live stream, pretty open to questions, comments, inquiries about the Blogging Theology Academy, our courses, what we're about, why we're doing this, what's the rationale, what's the ethos of what we do, who is who are our esteemed instructors, because we have some fantastic, distinguished academics, instructors who are joining us on the courses, teaching the courses. We can talk about that. And assalamu alaikum, everyone who's joining us. I can see in the comments, salam to you. If you have any questions or comments or anything at all, please post a comment on YouTube, as you can see, and we would do our best to tackle them. So I just want to introduce people to our website, which we're very proud of. And here we go. So this is the website, bloggingtheologyacademy.com, or CALM, as the Americans call it. And this is, as you can see, hopefully, that bit of the course, the website about our advanced diploma, which is composed of two complementary yet cutting edge courses. One of them, which is headed by myself, is called The Bible in Early Christianity, the Western Critical Method, or the Historical Critical Method, and Islam. And the other one, led by our esteemed scholar Hasan Spiker, is called Metaphysics and Logic in the Islamic and Western Traditions. Now, these are both, I think, very good courses, and we've had a whole year of teaching already. This is our second year. And it's been very exciting, enjoyable for all of us, I think, for students and teachers as well. Hasan, what is your course about, this metaphysics and logic in the Islamic and Western tradition? What are you actually teaching people on this course?
Yeah, well, basically, what we're teaching on this course is a lost science that used to be very integral to the Islamic world and used to be very integral indeed to the Western world, to the Christian world, and now has become rather more rather more of a kind of niche esoteric subject in university faculties, within specifically the philosophy faculty, and that's really not where metaphysics used to be. Now, there's a great urgency for the revival of metaphysics in our time, specifically for Muslims. And this is for a host of reasons. To understand them fully would be to understand the entire history intellectual history of the Islamic world and the Western world. But I'll try my best to sum that up in about 2 minutes. Basically, we are faced now with an intellectual establishment which, the academy, dominated by the legacy of positivism. And there are a lot of nuances between these different terms when you really get into the nitty gritty. But for our purposes, we could use the term scientism. Basically, what remains a de facto assumption, even amongst those who are, let's say, not actively promoting scientism, even in the continental tradition of philosophy, for example, people like Sartre, people like de Beauvoir, you'd think of them as the furthest thing in the world away from positivism or scientism, although they're atheists. But it's all about, exploring subjectivity and, being and blah, blah, blah. But you find on closer analysis that, the underlying assumptions, epistemological assumptions, are still positivism, scientism. It's an idea that there is this fundamental split between what can be known objectively and what can be and what is merely a subjective exploration. Okay. And so what has come to dominate the Western world in the past few hundred years, again, painting in broadest strokes, because we have to. We've got 2 minutes to talk about it. You can write lots and lots of books on this subject. So just be aware that I'm aware that this doesn't have all the nuance that it should. But what has come to dominate for the last 300 years is a vision of reality which is fundamentally split down the middle between the objective real world out there, which is just physical, and the subjective world of our consciousness, our way of looking at the world, our way of interpreting the world, which is just subjective. And the thing is, a lot of Muslims have been lured into this rabbit hole as well. And indeed, these assumptions inform educational systems around the world, these universalized, purportedly neutral scientific educational systems, which are actually very far from being neutral. Now, you might think, well, what does it matter? Science is objective and everything else is not ultimately objective. What does it matter? Well, it matters because what you're saying is Islam's not really true. That's what you're saying. You're saying that moral judgments are not really knowable. There's no objective ethics. There's no objective morality. What you're saying is, which might seem less important, but is actually very important, is there's no objective. All our judgments about beauty are also subjective. So, truth, beauty, and goodness, that Platonic triad, all become completely subjective. Now, that really matters. If truth, goodness, and beauty are all completely subjective, then we have basically bought into an atheistic narrative about the world, which, but we're still, clinging on to an Islamic identity, and it becomes a kind of identitarianism, effectively. So, what is my course about? My course is about reinstating metaphysics as the foundation of our revealed view of the world, right? So I always think of the revelation as coming down to us. But metaphysics, in a way, is our way of going up to meet the revelation and receive it, right? Everyone has a metaphysics, whether they know it or not. They might totally denigrate metaphysics and say that it has absolutely no value and it's just luxuriating ivory tower kind of indulgence, basically. But even that person does have a metaphysics via which they view the world. It's just they don't know that it's called metaphysics. Metaphysics is basically amounts to our most fundamental assumptions about the nature of the world. They're the most fundamental ones. Sometimes they're so fundamental we don't even know that we have those assumptions. But nonetheless, everything else that we do and think is based on them, whether we know it or not. Now, the problem with not knowing that what your metaphysics is, or that you even have one, is that the great likelihood is someone else has done your metaphysics for you, right? Without you even noticing. And that metaphysics might actually be antithetical to everything that you claim to believe. Mm-hmm. So basically, that's the metaphysics course. What we do is we go into the history of Islamic metaphysics, the history of metaphysics in the West, the roots of metaphysics in Plato and Aristotle and Pythagoras and other thinkers, and beyond the Greek philosophers as well. We don't want to have that kind of narrow focus on the Greek philosophers as often Light's philosophy courses. And we try to be as comprehensive as possible. We don't kind of go Plato, Aristotle, and then, oh, look, nothing's happening for thousands of years. And then, he's the next philosopher, which is what happened in my philosophy, BA.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Reality. Yeah. And do you say that happened in your philosophy, B, as well?
Yeah, I think we were both on the same course. Not at the same time, but Birkbeck University of London. And I noticed we jumped from Aristotle, skipped over very lightly Augustine, and went straight into Descartes. And I thought, hang on, there's 1,500 years of stuff going on. You've just jumped over, and I thought this is very Eurocentric, secular course, because some of the greatest philosophers ever, like Thomas Aquinas and Augustine, were simply ignored because they were religious. You see,
exactly, religious. Yeah.
As if Descartes wasn't religious, with his ontological argument. Very, very funny. So just what I'm showing everyone is from the website bloggingtheologyacademy.com. This is the section on Hasan's course, Metaphysics and Logic in the Islamic and Western Traditions. There's a wonderful summary there about the rationale of the course, and then we have the course modules, the various weeks. You can see 7 till 13, but weeks 14 to 16 are separate from that. And there's some interesting photographs of Hasan. Was one at King's College, Cambridge, ranting there to the audience. Goodness knows what you're saying there.
Yeah, that's Keynes behind me, that statue.
Okay. Oh, Keynes. Oh, right. The economist.
He was at King's, yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize. Gosh. So I think, in all fairness, we ought to now look at my course. There are two complementary courses that make up the advanced diploma. We've heard briefly from Hasan. Mine is the Bible and Early Christianity, the historical critical method, and Islam. And these are the course modules. We start off in week 1. Why should we bother studying the Bible and early Christianity in the first place? Well, there are very good reasons why. Not just to understand the Western tradition. The Bible has been the most important book of all in the West, but also the influence that Christianity has had in succeeding centuries through to the Reformation, the Renaissance, and Enlightenment. Even today, the Bible is still weaponized, particularly by certain religious groups in the United States, to justify certain Middle East states' behavior and occupation and dispossession of people, etc. Not going to go into that now. So it's a very important book that's still very influential. The way it's interpreted by certain people is still very powerfully present in the world today. We look at the New Testament on the course, early Christians' beliefs, the diversity of beliefs and practices, often underappreciated by Christians, a great range of different views that people had right from the beginning. Jewish Christians, Marcionites, Gnostic Christians, Proto-Orthodox, etc. We talk about the incendiary question of forgeries in the Bible and why they matter, because scholars, academics, most of whom are Christians, are very familiar with the fact that there are books in the New Testament, like the second letter of Peter, which is actually fake. It's not considered to be by Peter by the vast majority of people, experts. It's usually seen as a second century fake. And this matters because the book itself claims to be by Peter, an eyewitness account, but it seems a forgery. We look at the Gospels. We go into the historical and literary nature of the Gospels, the synoptic problem, a really important discovery in the last couple hundred years. I won't go into that now, but very important for understanding the historical Jesus. We took up the real Jesus, what I call the real Jesus, the Jesus of Islam, and the remarkable convergence between the Jesus of historical research and the Jesus of the Quran. This is an underreported, unstressed reality, extraordinary convergence or overlap between these two, with the one exception, the alleged problem of the crucifixion, which the Quran denies, of course, for various reasons. Who was Jesus? We look at this from an historical, critical point of view, and an Islamic point of view, and a Christian point of view, trying to see what the sources are, what's the truth, who has the more truer picture of who Jesus as he really was. We look at the Apostle Paul, of course. Was he the founder of Christianity, or was that a simplistic idea? Who was he? What was his mission? And what about his letters, the problems of forgeries in his work? And then we look also at James, the actual brother of Jesus, not a brother in a religious sense only, but his biological brother, being whitewashed out of history, but lots of early sources that tell us about him and his significance for Christianity today even. And we look at what is Christianity or Christianities. And then we go into term 2 and we fast forward into the emerging church, New Testament theology, biblical theology, Trinitarianism, Christology, Council of Nicaea, the Reformation, and modernity, the modern world. There's so much packed in here, and it goes on for further weeks as well. This is just half of the course, really. We have guest lecturers on both courses. On my course, Dr. Ali Attai, the very highly esteemed, brilliant polymath, actually, from Zaytuna College, of course. He is fluent in New Testament Greek. He's fluent in biblical Hebrew. He's fluent in Persian or Farsi. He even speaks English, I think. And he is a brilliant communicator and teacher. Very honored that he should be visiting faculty, and he will be teaching us several things. Last year, he taught people how to read from scratch, how to read New Testament Greek and biblical Hebrew in 2 mega sessions. and he did it actually. If you want to learn how to read the Bible in its original languages with a brilliant teacher who knows how to, really help us to grasp otherwise very difficult language like Hebrew for many of us, he manages to do it. So I'll be teaching, inshallah, another course perhaps on Judaism, the Jewish religion, as well, about which he is an expert. We have someone else on my course, Dr. Joseph Lombard, professor in Doha, PhD at Yale University, talking about modern epistemologies and the threat to an Islamic understanding of metaphysics, and this idea of neocolonialism intellectually and decolonizing the curriculum. He's a brilliant intellectual, and he last year he took a session on that. Dr. Francesca, who's an Italian revert, but she has a PhD in neuroscience from a German university. She's a qualified psychologist. She's an all-round brilliant Islamic scholar. She will be taking a class, a session as well. Dr. Louis Fatui, who's an expert on first century Christianity, and so on. So it's not just me droning on. We have some wonderful specialists also to teach. And one of the defining characteristics of the Blogging Theology Academy is live tuition. We don't inflict recordings on people, YouTube videos, or anything like that. It's live sessions. We encourage everyone to switch on their cameras so we can all see each other. We have one-to-one sessions, individual tuition, or office hours, as it's sometimes known, where we can talk personally with students about the subjects, their progress, about their essays. So it's all live and interactive. We're not a bureaucracy. We really want to form people as well as inform the subject matter as well. And this is one of the distinctive qualities, I think, of Blogging Theology Academy. So I'm just going to look at some of the questions. Here's one here. Bernadette says, Brother Paul, do you look into books not included in the Bible, like the Gospels of Thomas, etc.? Absolutely, because there aren't, in the early church, there were not just 4 Gospels. There were many other Gospels: the Gospel of Peter, the Gospel of Thomas, the infancy Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Judas, and so on. And there are many other Gospels that were circulating and were seen as scripture by some groups. The Gnostic Christians had their, like the Gospel of Thomas, this series of 114 sayings of Jesus, not really a gospel narrative like our Gospels, but it's quite Gnostic. We look at the Gospel of Peter and many others were seen as scripture by some groups of Christians. So we will certainly look at the diversity of Christianities in the first few centuries, because it wasn't just what became the Catholic canon of the New Testament, the 27 books. There were other Christianities, the Jewish Christians, the original Ebionites. What was their scripture? Okay, it was a Jewish version, a Hebrew version rather, of the Gospel of Matthew, not quite the same as our Greek version. So this is a really good question, and we will be looking at a range of literary forms, Gospels, letters, forgeries outside of the New Testament as well as within it. So that's a really good question. Just want to scroll up and see. Okay, some random questions here, but the good questions. When is the deadline? So we have, of course, the main, our centerpiece, if you like, our main course, which is the advanced diploma, and that begins actually tomorrow, Saturday. But you can still sign up for it for at least the first couple of weeks before it gets too advanced. But there are other courses as well, the short courses, which have different start dates. Do you want to talk a bit about that, Hasan, in terms of deadlines and when people can enroll in these courses?
Yes, absolutely. I'll read from the website.
Oh, yes.
If you go to the website and you go to the menu that says admissions, you'll find you have the option to apply for all of these various courses. It says apply for the advanced diploma, apply for AI diploma, etc. So if you click on apply for advanced diploma, you'll see in the note that it says applications have now been extended until Wednesday, the 30th of April for late entry, i.e. up to 3 weeks into the 26-week course. Students who enter the course late will be provided with the resources necessary to enable them to get up to speed with missed course content. No students will be admitted beyond the 3rd week. So we did try, because there was so much interest after the course had started, a lot of people think, oh God, I'm going to have to wait for a whole year. So we did relent and admit new students to the course up until about the 5th week last year, and even up to the 5th week that worked quite well. But I think we thought it would be better to cap this at 3 weeks, just so that the live aspect of the course, which is really absolutely crucial for us, remains absolutely paramount from as early as possible. So there would be 3 weeks of catching up from the videos of the live sessions, but thereafter, you'd still have 23 weeks left. And obviously, those who enter the course late will. What last year essentially was get the students up to speed in office hours, so they can arrange private one-on-one sessions with us to ask questions. That they missed, let's say, 3 live sessions. Well, they can ask all of those questions which have arisen from watching those 3 weeks of recordings. They can ask them to us in person, one-on-one, in the office hours. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. There's another question here. Okay, this is for you, Hasan. Could one potentially get access to Hasan's assigned readings without enrolling on the course? For you, Hasan.
I regret to say that they're exclusive to those who enroll at BT Academy, I'm afraid. So sorry about that.
Yeah. Okay.
I wish I could give a better answer.
And this is normal on courses. What one has to enroll really to get hold of bibliographies and stuff. The next question, of course, very important question: is the course free?
The course is not free. It is free for quite a lot of people who have been granted scholarships, merit-based scholarships. They're not just need-based. For need-based applications, in terms of the pricing, we can offer fee reductions. We just negotiate fee reductions directly. Well, you negotiate directly with our admissions email, which is admissions@bloggingtheologyacademy.com. So we are very, very open to. We don't want the pricing of the course to be an obstacle for people who really can't pay for it. And it's a selective course. It's kind of part and parcel of our focus on individual attention, that we start off by interviewing every single applicant. Not everyone gets to the interview stage, I should say, but based on your application, the most important thing in your application is going to be your personal statement. If we're inspired by your personal statement, then we'll interview you. Then it's if you're a great candidate and you really have the aptitude for the course and you have the passion for the course, we'll let you into the course on that basis. But having said that, there are fees for the course, and the standard fees are £2,300 a term, which is a 13-week term, which is $2,900. And that makes up for the whole year a total of $5,800 or £4,600. Many students, believe it or not, want to pay the whole year up front, and that's probably the most popular option. But there are also termly payment available, and there's monthly payment available as well. And then even beyond monthly payment, as I said, we can discuss a potential fee reduction. There's no guarantee of it for those who need it. And then for really exceptional candidates, we have been offering scholarships as well.
Yeah. So it's really is not the case. Is this not the case, Hasan, that these fees are comparable to standard equivalent courses in universities? And
it's about half the a year of a BA now in British universities, I think, is standardly about $9,000 now, isn't it? So it's an awful lot cheaper than that. For us, it's about, and so for the students, who enrolled last year, and for the over 50 students who have enrolled this year. It's about the intrinsic value of the course. This is not a course that someone does for dunya. It's just for career advancement. It may well advance your career, but it's for the love of the knowledge. It's for the love of the subject, and it is priced in a fairly premium way. What you have to remember is BT Academy receives absolutely no funding whatsoever. That keeps us independent. But what you're getting is not only live lectures, but a lot of individual attention, one-on-one tuition, really that extends to a kind of mentoring. And I have to say that the students last year were happy across the board, and some of them, many of them, described the course as life-changing. And many of them we've kept in touch with, and many of them can't really cope with the fact that the course has ended, actually, to be frank with you. They wanted us to make up a level 2, and they were really pushing for that. And we almost did it. Yeah.
I'm just looking for we have some student testimonials, don't we? On the website.
That's on I think if you go to the homepage.
Yep.
Down quite a lot.
Okay.
You'll get almost to the bottom.
Here we are. Well, what BT Academy students say. So this was last year's students, three of them, and they are representative, actually. And I just want to perhaps go through one or two of them. There's Zakir Hussain Gul, who is doing his PhD at Harvard. He said BT Academy provides a refreshing and long-awaited third space that is neither the traditional Islamic seminary nor the modern secular academy, offering students with some grounding in both or either pedagogical traditions the opportunity to fill intellectual lacunae not addressed in either, all in accordance with one's ability and proclivities. So that's Zakir. And then we have another, Junaid, who's quite senior in working in healthcare in the UK, a brilliant student. If you don't know much about these subjects, this course will astonish you. If you know something about these subjects, this course will astonish you with further knowledge, understanding, and insights. This course will provoke you into exploring your Muslim identity. But the real gem of this course is the opportunity to get to know Paul Williams and Hasan Spiker. So he was one of our wonderful students. And lastly, Asim, a software developer. What this course offers is exactly what the Islamic world needs. The vast majority of Muslims have neither an understanding of their own tradition because they've been cut off, nor do they understand the Western world. This course offers exactly that. And I think that was pretty typical, don't you think, Hassan, of what most, if not all, of our students would have said?
Absolutely. We were really overwhelmed by how positive the students were and how much of a rapport we were able to cultivate with the students, and how warm and how there was really something special about the energy of the course. There was a real sense of togetherness. It was a real cohort. And a lot of friends were made. I was told by a lot of the students who enrolled in the course that they made lifelong friends over the course of the year. So it was really something quite special. Alhamdulillah.
Okay, another question. Anyone know a good self-paced online course for Arabic? Oh, no, that's not to do with us, is it? But our course doesn't require any knowledge of Arabic, although some Arabic is employed when appropriate. That's not strictly to do with the course itself. This is an interesting one. Will the admission be funded for by a government educational institute if I apply?
I don't understand that question. If the person's still there and they can clarify, that would be great.
Yeah, if you could perhaps clarify what that means. Again, this question again for you, Hassan, I'm not sure. Maybe that makes sense to you. Gamification?
I didn't. I think it sounds like a really interesting question to me, but I don't quite understand what you mean by that, Luqman. Would you be able to expand on that?
Yeah, please clarify, Luqman, and I'll put the clarificatory question up. In the meantime, this is Salam. Is Arabic a prerequisite? What do you think,
Arabic
Hasan?
is not a prerequisite. Everything in the course is translated. So there's a lot of, I shouldn't say everything is translated because a lot of it is not in Arabic in the first place. It's obviously also about the Western tradition. And so we have to deal with Western sources, and you're going to be learning your Greek letters and your Hebrew letters. And that's all to empower you to really master the Western tradition so that you understand the world that you're living in. However, Arabic is obviously of paramount importance in terms of the literature of the Islamic sciences and so on. And so there are a lot of Arabic sources. I'm just speaking particularly about my course. Obviously, there's a lot fewer Arabic sources in Paul's course because it's not drawing on the when you're talking about Bible and early Christianity. Paul's primarily drawing on Western sources, of course, but and Western languages. But in my course, I'm drawing on a lot of Arabic sources, but they will all be translated. However, I don't do pure translations. I like to have them parallel. So you'll see the English, you'll see the Arabic.
Mm-hmm.
What I found is those who have no Arabic understood everything because everything is designed to be intelligible for someone who has no Arabic. However, those who know Arabic and have a bit of background in the Islamic sciences were also able to benefit. I have there's a student, Muhyiddin, who is actually he's a instructor at a well-known seminary in the Western world. He's a Maulana, he's a sheikh, he's an alim, he's an Islamic scholar, and he was so enthused by the course, by the whole year, that he contacted me recently. Very amazing adab and a really lovely person, of course, and requesting, could I please just audit the entire year again? Could I just please, would it be possible if I could just be there? I found it so beneficial. So the point being that, alhamdulillah, by God's grace, this is being found to be really beneficial, not only by people who are approaching the Islamic tradition and philosophy, the Islamic philosophy for the first time, but also by those who in a certain sense are specialists in the field. So I was really thrilled by that. So the point is, yes, it's fully intelligible in English, but you will benefit. You will grow in your understanding of traditional Islamic studies in the process, and I'm quite deliberate about that.
Yeah, thank you. I think we'll just I hope that was answers your question. I was just thinking, any excuse to play our wonderful video again.
Great.
So we will. Let's see if I can.
We could also read some FAQs. That's another.
Yes.
All of the sciences point to the same metaphysical reality, and they ultimately point to God. At BTA, we recover a metaphysical vision which was really standard and basic in Islamic civilization. It's the idea that all of the sciences are integrated. You can't have them off on their own, isolated and fragmented, the way that you have in the modern university, the hyper-specialist who just knows everything there is to know about physics but can't understand anything else.
Quite shocking that there was this gap in the education system, actually, which, inshallah, we will fulfill.
One of the things we do on the course that I teach is to look in detail, without straw-manning the West, without straw-manning New Testament scholarship, understanding it in all its depth and breadth, and then looking at the Quran and the Islamic tradition and what it says. And in my view, this points to the divine origin of the Quran, that it gets Jesus exactly right. And that's one of the things we explore in depth on the course.
What we're trying to do with the short courses is expand beyond the explicitly theological to all of the most important areas of modern life. So it's AI and AI development, but from an Islamic metaphysical viewpoint. It's Islamic history, it's Western history, it's comparative psychology, even video game design. We have an executive from PlayStation.
When you told me we had someone from PlayStation, I couldn't believe it. But it's actually...
Yeah, but I mean, that's how broad the scope is now with what we're doing with the short courses. There was a messenger sent to all peoples. And as such, you find an extraordinary openness in Muslim civilization to seeing truth as one.
It's also very fascinating because it takes in many disciplines. History and theology, languages, textual criticism, and also the contemporary world. Religion is still a powerful force politically, socially in the world today. So it's incredibly relevant and also very intellectually interesting and challenging as well. So what's not to like about it?
The point of BTA is to empower young Muslim students, to give them the tools to not be on the defensive, to exist in their modern context with an extraordinary degree of confidence.
You said lots of things there about what I've been wrestling with for many, many years.
Wow.
You've got a magnificent angle on it, and
That's very kind.
places, mate. Just a magnificent exploration of where Christ and God and the Trinity actually sits.
Oh, well said. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you anyway.
Let's just talk to you.
Yeah, thank you. What's your name?
I'm Gary.
Gary, I'm Paul. Nice to meet you, Gary.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I do like that, I must say.
Fantastic.
Yeah, very good. There are lots more questions, but I just want to... Sorry, carry on.
It pulls on my heartstrings.
Well, the music is great, and no, it's a very nice film, I must say. Filmed at Cambridge University, where, of course, you are doing your doctorate. If people didn't realise, we did mention in the film. I expressed my surprise when I first heard of this about a couple of things. We've got an AI expert talking about. We'll come to that in a second. But this master coding and game design course with a leading gaming legend, applications are now open for BT Academy's new diploma in programming, video games, and society, taught by Shahid Kamal Ahmad. Now, he is a former executive at PlayStation and a recognized expert, industry leader in the field, and a very charismatic speaker. Apparently, he's a lot older than he looks, he tells us so. He has a course just for BTA students, a diploma, which you can apply for now. There's an application form on the website, bloggingtheologyacademy.com. We've watched the film, but I wanted to mention also BT Academy's world-leading AI course for Muslims. Could you tell us a bit about that course, Hasan?
Well, what we have seen when it comes to discussing the importance of, let's say, metaphysics and Islamic renewal and recovering Islamic worldview today is that so many Muslims today come from so-called STEM backgrounds, right? Science and technology and engineering and whatever. And indeed, last year on our course, many of our students were really top-level STEM people. I'm not sure if I should refer to them as STEM people, but anyway. For example, as I endlessly can't get over it, we had a PhD in computational biology from Harvard, and he was really one of our best and most enthusiastic students. But the point is, there's this great hunger to kind of find foundations, to kind of uncover, to make all of this make sense, all of this technical activity, all of this technology, all of this scientific worldview, to try to understand it. It's kind of closing the gap. It's kind of unifying what should be unified but has become fragmented, where we compartmentalize these various aspects of life, and we tend to view science and technology as just real world stuff, which is completely different from anything to do with metaphysical reality or anything to do with religion and so on. And so, this is a kind of legacy of Western bifurcations, a fragmented Western way of looking at the world, and it's ultimately a legacy of the what is often known as the Cartesian split between knowing subject and nature, and students who are on our course last year found it immensely helpful to get those that metaphysical grounding in feeling better about what they're doing, in making everything that they're engaged in their professional life make far more sense. So basically, the AI course is an extension of this philosophy into the most important emerging technology in the world, without any doubt. And it really is extraordinary, isn't it? I think everyone, I think there was a long time when, you get a new iPhone, it goes from 13 to 14 to 15 to 16 to 17, but it's basically the same. But then, AI turns up and it's just extraordinary. I mean, you can the Chat GPT experience, and now there's so many others. I think basically exceeds everyone's expectations when they experience it for the first time.
I must say, it's quite addictive. I use it virtually every day now to have ask questions and find out information. But our specialist in this area, as you can see, Dr. Jakob Chowdhury. If you click on this thing here, it's on our website, it would take you to the Cambridge University website, where he is an academic. So he is probably the world's top university teaching AI as an academic there. So he's one of the leading specialists in the world in AI, and he's doing this course on Blogging Theology Academy. I won't go into it. This is an area which I'm very ignorant about, so I won't pretend to waffle about it. But there is an application process there. You can look at the start date, the duration, the fees, the application process and deadline is all there. So please have a look at the website, bloggingtheologyacademy.com. It's definitely worth. This has been proved to be a very popular course. A lot of people have already signed up for it. And just moving on quickly to Dr. Francesca Bocca's course. She's running two courses. One is a pre-diploma foundation for those who want an introduction to Islam, Islamic sciences and history prior to going into the advanced diploma that we run. And she has a fantastic syllabus. I do recommend you have a look at that. And this is the applications for advanced diploma again. More information there. She also has a short course on Islamic psychology, which is also proving to be very popular with students as well. I'll just click on that. So, introducing BT Academy's cutting-edge diploma in Islamic psychology with renowned neuroscientist and theologian Dr. Francesca. She's an Italian revert, very brilliant, PhD from a German university in neuroscience. You can apply for that. Here's a little bit about the diploma, which I do strongly urge you to look at on the website, bloggingtheologyacademy.com. She's an extraordinary teacher and academic, and she's qualified in all of these areas, formally accredited with PhDs and diplomas and whatnot. And I think also it might be worth looking, as Hasan suggested, at the FAQs, actually, the frequently asked questions, because these are really important questions people ask, and they're asking them in the some of them been asked in the comments here. But we'll perhaps just briefly go through this. Do have a look for yourself online at bloggingtheologyacademy.com/FAQs. How are students trained and assessed at Blogging Theology Academy? How is this channel different from Blogging Theology YouTube channel, which is very different? I'm already studying / I work. Can I study at BT Academy? The short answer is yes. will BT Academy ever become a bricks and mortar institution? Well, that is the aspiration. Watch this space. We're already talking about that earlier on today, actually, about possible locations, some very important prime locations we're looking at, we might well work with. I see you host Christians and non-Sunnis, etc. What is BT's religious affiliation? Well, we're definitely a Sunni Muslim institution, but you can see our answer there. Can an unlimited number of students enroll? Unfortunately not. We have to keep our class sizes relatively small in order to assure the quality of education, because it's personal, it's interactive, it's not recorded, it's not bureaucratic. So obviously there's a finite number of places available. We do interview each student individually on the advanced diploma course. Some of the short courses, there are no formal interviews, so there is an application process, a written application process. What will I get out of the diploma? Now, these are the two last questions I want to focus on with Hasan. What will I get out of this diploma? And also, why does BT Academy prefer not to be accredited? And these are really important issues. And if Hasan is willing, I'll invite him to. Obviously, people can read what's on the front of them, but could you perhaps just summarize what students can expect to get out of this advanced diploma, particularly?
Well, the advanced diploma is there to empower Muslims to understand the environment, the world that we're living in, which is like it or not, is a Western dominated world, not just politically. It's a Western dominated world in terms of the deep metaphysical epistemological structures, which have now unfortunately become unexamined assumptions for many Muslims. And so we have this illusion of this universal neutral civilization, which is terribly scientific. It's just neutral science. I mean, what's wrong with that? It's just neutral science. And it's just neutral liberalism, it's human rights. It's all of this stuff that also represents a kind of neutral moral progress. Now, I think that helpfully, there's certain things going on in the world which are helping Muslims to realize that a lot of this is not really very true. I mean, what's going on, for example, in the world today with the genocide in Gaza and the breakdown of international law and so on, I think has really made a lot of people go back and say, hold on, perhaps some of these claims that the West makes about having this neutral, fair and just, the checks and balances of a rules-based order and so on is actually perhaps simply a mask. Perhaps it's just an outward appearance which veils a reality which is very far from neutral, very far from fair and impartial and just. But the point is, this extends far beyond that political domain, which is kind of becoming a little bit obvious. And so in an important way, it's to rescue Muslims from because being caught in that web of what are ultimately illusions is very problematic for us as Muslims, because it bars us from understanding what our deen really is. It bars us from understanding what the Islamic worldview really is. And when I say the Islamic worldview, I make it sound limitative and dogmatic. It's obviously something infinitely nuanced, but it's nonetheless still broadly this single Islamic worldview informed by the revelation and so on. And so, one of the most important things in understanding the world around us is understanding that this Western-dominated world is a Christian world, and many would say it's a post-Christian world. In some ways, it is. But I really came to understand this through taking Paul's course myself last year, which is that although it is a post-Christian world, certainly in kind of the way that it likes to present itself, it's still Christianity is still far more important than you might think. and indeed, when you find a lot of right-wing movements today, the populism that you're seeing arising that arose, with Boris Johnson and the Conservative Party, who basically trashed Britain over the course of 14 years. It was a lot to do with reviving Christian values, and we are a Christian country, and we have to recover our identity. And you find a lot of that rhetoric on the right in America as well. And so, there is this huge tension in the West now there's this huge kind of conversation about, well, how do we make sense of the fact that we are originally a Christian civilization? We've given rise to something which claims to have transcended Christianity. But once we did that, we in their rhetoric, we started being taken over by Muslims. So basically,
I hadn't noticed that the taken over by Muslims bit. I hadn't quite noticed that in England, but anyway, perhaps I'm not looking in the right places. Sorry.
Absolutely. So, these two courses we see as fundamentally complementary, and they empower Muslims to understand the world that we live in today. Political aspects, social aspects, philosophical aspects, religious aspects, from an authentically Islamic viewpoint. And I have to say, alhamdulillah, God be praised, it worked out very, very well indeed. Really, these courses are complementary. They go together very, very well, and students come out feeling empowered. And so, that for us is thrilling. Yeah.
Thank you for that. And the next question, if we could deal with this briefly, well, hopefully we'll wrap up at the top of the hour in about 10 minutes or so. But this question of why does BT Academy prefer not to be accredited is a really important one. And this article is written by yourself, and you quote from the Chronicle of Higher Education: the accreditation of religious colleges systematically undermines the most fundamental purposes of higher education. And many Christian colleges in the West, America, Britain, have found this accreditation system to be quite threatening to the religious integrity of their institutions. And they have been forced to sign up to various alternative lifestyle regulations and certain quota systems and all sorts of things which have compromised the integrity of the group. And just to mention, there's one leading Muslim institution. I mean, this is a public event that happened recently, Cambridge Muslim College. I'm not criticizing them. I'm just telling you what happened. That they are an accredited institution, and good luck to them. But they were asked or required by the accreditation body, the Open University, to change the name of one of their courses. It was called Islamic Psychology. Now, I know this because they made it known on X, on Twitter, and they had to change the name of the course from Islamic Psychology to Islam and Psychology. Again, this is all public knowledge, and they were required to do this. And there is a big difference between Islamic Psychology, which is what we teach with that name, and Islam and Psychology, which posits there's a thing called psychology and there's a thing called Islam, and the course is about these two different and separate entities understood in this Western classification system. But they were required to do this. Now, we're not required to do that because we're not accredited in that formal way in that Western institution. Many of our guest lecturers, our faculty, are accredited. They're leading academics with PhDs and so on. But as an institution, BTA will not be going down that road. We will lose our independence. We will have our integrity, Islamic integrity, compromised. As Hasan very interestingly discusses in his basically an article on the website under the FAQ section. I don't know if you want to say a few words about that as well, Hasan, in addition.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, accreditation is meant to, if you look at it in a very broad sense, not in the modern secular sense, it's meant to reassure the student that this is a top quality education, that all of the different aspects of the education are carried out, take place in terms of a careful a careful examination of their viability. They're tried and tested methods, and most important of all, that all of the instructors are qualified. But the reality of modern secularization, of modern accreditation, rather, is that it is part and parcel of the secularizing process, right? So, yeah, as I say here, increasingly in the West today, Islamic institutions proudly profess to being conventionally accredited. Such a process avows conformity to various standards that have little to do with guaranteeing a high standard of education. This is because the criteria by which these standards are determined and evaluated are largely secular, or neutral, as they'd call it, as to the content being taught. So they don't care if you're getting, real Islamic knowledge, but pertain primarily merely to a somewhat mechanical, procedural, and largely quantitative series of box-ticking checks pertaining to factors like organizational structure, learning outcomes, and data accumulation. These are things that they actually test when they accredit a college. And these apparently innocent forms of procedural regulation veil more sinister and explicit forms of secularization, diversity quotas, the use of neutral, pluralistic language. You have to watch your language. If you start saying Islam is objectively true, you might start hurting someone's feelings. So, if you start critiquing the claims of Christianity, you might be hurting someone else's feelings. So it has to be framed in a way that, if we were to look at it like this, from that perspective, it would be the case that, and that's, we don't want to have our language regulated in that way. So, neutral, pluralistic language when transmitting metaphysical truths. How can you do that except by relativizing what you're saying? The absoluteness of which it would consider violence, equal opportunity employment, and all of that. So, which all sounds so nice on the face of it, but veils a kind of sinister reality. And so, yes, I think this is something that we're not apologetic about. We're really rather proud of. And I think that it allows us really, as BT Academy, to be completely independent, to not be constrained or restrained in the way that we teach as we see best serves the aims of the academy. Yeah, don't want to go on waffling, but
that's extremely helpful, and I do urge people to look at the FAQs on bloggingtheologyacademy.com, because some of the answers are very detailed, and actually their essays in themselves very instructive. I found, thanks to Hasan for putting those together. So I do urge you to look at those. Just on a completely different topic, before we conclude, perhaps shortly, this session, someone asked, are Shia philosophers included in the course, like Mullah Sadra? Hasan.
Oh, yeah, we have. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry. We have philosophers of all persuasions, Christian philosophers and Shia philosophers, and, of course, mainly Sunni philosophers. But no, they're absolutely included. I mean, the particular case of Mullah Sadra, you'll find that my particular take on Mullah Sadra is a little bit unusual, because I think that Mullah Sadra the importance of Mullah Sadra has been hugely inflated because of political reasons, and the fact that people who want his importance to be inflated have lots of money and have managed to convince people he's more important than he is. But he's still a very good philosopher. But it's just that Mullah Sadra, as the great synthetical philosopher who, basically after Ibn Khaldun, it's a narrative. It's really very, very crude narrative, but that has hitherto been kind of dominant, both in the academy amongst Muslims, is that, after Ibn Rushd, everything went pear-shaped for Islamic philosophy. And, you occasionally had every few hundred years a philosopher kind of popping up. So we say, Ibn Khaldun popped up magically a few hundred years later, and then there was nothing again. And then Mullah Sadra, and that's not anything to do with reality. Mullah Sadra is supposed to be the synthetical philosopher par excellence, because he brought together the philosophy of Ibn Arabi with the philosophy of Ibn Sina, with the philosophy of Suhrawardi. And again, that happened in Islamic philosophy but it happened a lot earlier, and it wasn't Mullah Sadra. He was just the tail end of that tradition, really. You've got many people before him, Mullah Fanari, Maulana Abdurrahman Jami, Dawani, so many other philosophers, mostly in the Ottoman world, who have been completely forgotten because there's been so much promotion of Iranian philosophers for kind of, I suppose, obvious reasons in the last 40 years. So the short answer is yes. The long answer I just gave.
Okay. Benedette says, as someone with a fine arts degree has passionately read theology books at home for 20 years. By the way, that's an amazing achievement. By the way, I do recommend everyone read lots of books at home. Would there be any point for me to apply? Yes, there would very much be, because you can join a community of people who are fascinated by books, by theology, by logic, metaphysics, study of the Bible, early Christianity, and perhaps be introduced to new works, new thoughts, interact with experts like Dr. Ali Attai, for example, Dean of Undergraduate Studies at Zaytuna College, who is part of our faculty, who will be teaching from time to time on my particular course. Then we have other academics. If you go to the faculty page on our website, you will see other people there. There's Joseph Lombard listed, Dr. Ali Attai, Dr. Qureshi, Dr. Chowdhury, PhD from Cambridge. Usman Sheikh is doing his PhD at Oxford. Mustafa Aziz, I think it's Harvard, or was it Yale? I forget. It was Harvard. Yeah. Dr. Louis Fatui, who's a leading Islamic scholar, PhD in physics, and of course, Dr. Francesca Bocca. So, yeah, if you want to interact with these people, learn from them, ask them questions, you want to be tutored by them, have your horizons expanded and advanced, then I do recommend you apply. The only qualification, as far as I'm concerned, is a passion for the subject. If you're really interested, want to learn, then you'll find us an open door, inshallah. Yeah, so I'm just looking down to see if any new comments. Okay, this is somewhat unusual take. There cannot and should not be any academic course about a compilation of lies, myths, and legends. I'm not sure where this gentleman is coming from, but and what exactly is a lie. But we're not here to promote, not discussing lies. We're talking about, well, as you know, philosophy, Christianity, Islam, but from an Islamic point of view. So we're not neutral. We're not pretending to be somehow a place above everything. We're certainly committed as Muslims. All our faculty are, but we try and understand Christianity, the West, philosophy, without strawmanning it, understanding it as it really was or is, so we can understand where we are today. The hegemony of Western secular liberalism is powerful and pretends to be neutral, objective, scientific, when in fact it's none of those things. This is a particular ideology, an outcome of identifiable historical philosophical forces that have come about over the centuries. We identify them, we discuss them, we try and be objective about it, but from an Islamic metaphysical standpoint. So that's where we are coming from. AB, as a social scientist, would there be allusions to the impact of philosophy on the social, and how to construct Islamic capably inspired social theory? That's an interesting question. Hasan, do you have any thoughts about that?
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is, one has to see. Sociology is a science which has been founded much more latterly. I know people want to say that Ibn Khaldun is the founder of sociology, but not really. I mean, in a certain sense, I suppose you could say that. But it doesn't. The point is not in the manzuma of the sciences, not in our subordinated model of the sciences, where you have metaphysics and you have theology and you have ethics and you have politics and there's no sociology there. However, there are many insights in the Islamic philosophical tradition which someone who's working within the broad demarcation of sociology today, from which such a person will benefit hugely. There's no doubt about that whatsoever, because you're understanding the nature of the human being, you're understanding the nature of human political formations, of human associations and human sociability and all of that stuff. That all of this is treated within our tradition. It's just that it's not within something called sociology. It's within ethics. It's within politics as subordinated to ethics. It's within metaphysics when we talk about the nature of the human being. So yes, I mean the short answer is yes, but it's not going to be very explicit or entirely tailored towards, in terms of the prevailing terminologies of modern sociology. No. I recommend reading a little article by Karim Laham called Metaphysics and Sociology if you want to know basically what my take on the modern discipline of sociology is. But that's just a recommendation.
Thank you for that. Before we draw to a close, there's a couple more questions, and then we'll end. Also, if I may, do you offer scholarships to those who can't afford tuition? Well, as we mentioned before, we do offer a limited number of scholarships. Obviously, we interview people. There's an application process. But yes, we do offer scholarships, but not on a first come, not on a free basis. We do offer scholarships where people don't pay tuition fees, or we offer reduced fees, but it's very much on an individual case by case basis. So the person would need to apply and perhaps make their situation known, and then we can take it from there. So we can't make generalized answers. Yeah,
precisely. Thank you. So if I can just add to that, Paul, that we don't want to turn away any qualified, passionate student, but what you need to do is just be very clear about your circumstances in your personal statement when you apply. So, make your application, personal statement, and then, a couple of sentences about, why you want to apply for a scholarship and why you feel that you're qualified and you're a deserving candidate. And obviously, if you can pay something and contribute towards our running costs and so on, that would be preferable. But just be very clear about what you're capable of contributing, and we will do our absolute best to accommodate that. If of course, assuming that we feel that there's an aptitude and a real interest, then we'll do our absolute best for you, inshallah.
Thank you for that. And the similar question about scholarships for Islamic psychology, exactly the same answer would pertain there. So if you would consider then just applying via the apply now button there. By the way, you can also see the full syllabus for this course, which is quite an extraordinary syllabus, I must say, if you click on that button there. So yeah, do apply. It's a case-by-case individual basis. Inshallah, we'll take it from there. I think that might be it for now. We've been going for just over an hour. If anyone has any last-minute urgent questions, please, or comments, please put them on the comment section there. The one or two other questions I haven't addressed, but please do look at the website if you want any further information about fees, for example, or dates, and so on. Or they should all be answered on the website. But I think we might conclude it there, so as not to exhaust everyone. Hasan, do you have any final words?
Yeah, thank you, everyone. We very, very much look forward to welcoming you to BT Academy. I don't think it's a decision that you will ever regret. And we very much encourage you to apply. And I would say that time is of the essence. So if you are planning to, if you find that this is tantalizing or of great interest, then this is basically the last window now. So do go and apply as soon as you can. And we very, very much look forward to going on this journey with you, inshallah ta'ala.
Yes, indeed. So have a look at the website at bloggingtheologyacademy.com. There you can find the courses itemized, discussed. You can see videos for many of them where we talk to the instructors, and you can apply there too. So there's an application form. that you can fill there, and any of these individual questions about fees and so on can be discussed on a one-to-one basis there. So that's the link, that's the URL address. So please come along, visit the website, as I say, have a look around, and if you have any questions, you can email us as well, which we can hopefully respond to quickly. And inshallah, we will meet you, and we will embark together on an extraordinary intellectual journey of discovery, of learning, of spiritual enlightenment, because we're not a secular institution. And inshallah, it will benefit us all in the Ummah, inshallah. So thank you very much, everyone, for your time today. Please look at the website, and we will see you in the future, inshallah. So assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much, Hasan, for joining us today.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Take care.